In the name of God, in whom we live and move and have our being. Amen. Please be seated. Sit. Right? Sit. Sit. All you pets and people. This is great. I don't know if you could see it or not, but while Tracy, the lector, was reading, every time one of the dogs whined, she went like this behind her back, and they stopped. That's really good. That's a lot better than my dog. So welcome to the first Sunday in October, which means that it is Pet Blessing Sunday, and it's the beginning of creation season. Creation season at St. Mary's is just a too brief little time each year when we focus a bit more of our attention on God's beautiful creation. And all of this happens now because October 4th, which was this past Friday, is the day each year when the church celebrates St. Francis of Assisi, the raggedy and humble little medieval mystic saint whose love for nature has inspired beautiful artwork and wonderful whimsical bird baths for centuries. As it turns out, this morning's gospel reading really works well with our creation season theme. So today we have the followers of Jesus say to him, "Increase our faith," which is such a nice, brief, profound prayer, isn't it? Lord, please increase our faith. We could live with that prayer alone for a long, long time. God, increase my faith. And Jesus responds, as he so often does, by pointing to creation. And he weaves the things of God's beautiful creation into a parabolic saying. Jesus replied, "If you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey you." Okay. Well now, I'm not quite sure whether any of you have actually tried this or not. But I am quite sure that it probably would not work. I mean, with all due respect, of course. Maybe you could get a big tree to dance itself down Atlantic Ave and plant itself in the sea. But you know, probably not. Probably not. Remember that I said this is a parabolic saying. It's like a parable. It's a story. It's a story that reveals deep and profound spiritual wisdom. But it is surely not to be taken literally. That would be just plain silly. And Jesus is not fooling around here. Jesus told stories about creation because creation tells the story of God. What Jesus is quite plainly saying is that if you have even the tiniest bit of faith, you can change the world. If you have even the tiniest bit of faith, you can change the world. And in fact, if you do have even the tiniest bit of faith, you do change the world. Faith, scripturally defined, is trust in God. Trust in God's goodness and mercy and unconditional love for everyone and everything that God has made. Trust these things in yourself and in others and in all of creation, and you will see a different world. You will change the world, literally this time, literally. So Jesus says, if you have even the tiniest bit of faith, you can change the world. Jesus told stories about creation because creation tells the story of God. The story of God is all around us, all the time, everywhere we turn. In fact, there's nothing but the story of God, which I'm sure is a whole other sermon, and perhaps many more other sermons. Jesus told stories about creation because creation tells the story of God. So take some time in your own lives to notice this. Take some time to learn the story of God from the awesome wonder of everything that God has made. God gave us creation, this beautiful natural world, to be our playground, our meeting place, our holy temple, our wisest teacher. Jesus told stories about creation because creation tells the story of God. And what a great time of year to pay a little bit more time and attention, paying attention to creation. Last week I was away at a conference with the brilliant and amazing woman who authored our first book study book this fall. Her name is Mirabai Starr. She's a world-renowned writer and translator and professor of philosophy and interreligious studies, and a great nature mystic from northern New Mexico. Her work is superb, and I highly recommend her. She is a wise spiritual teacher, Mirabai Starr. The conference was held at a Unitarian Universalist Conference Center in a place called Rowe, Massachusetts, R-O-W-E, Massachusetts. And now, even as a lifelong resident of the state of Massachusetts, I had never, ever even heard of Rowe, Massachusetts. And that's because, turns out, it's a teeny tiny little town nestled in the Berkshire Mountains, in the far northwestern corner of the state. I'm told the town has about 300 residents, but I never saw any of them. Seriously, or maybe just a few, in the week that I was there. This place was quiet. I mean, it was really, really, really quiet. Now, I'm a great lover of silence and solitude, the twin sisters of contemplation, we call them, silence and solitude, and I love them both. Which it turns out for last week especially was a very good thing indeed. So I stayed for a couple of extra days after the fabulous conference wrapped up. Most folks went their separate ways and went back to their lives in various places around the country. But I stayed for a little while in the silence, in one of the prettiest places that I've ever seen. The autumn foliage was already at peak color there. So beautiful. The mountains and the huge old growth forest trees stood in the most amazingly deep silence. Jesus told stories about creation because creation tells the story of God. The mountains, the huge old trees, the sky, the lake, it was all absolutely silent. Almost all the time, except for the gentle occasional sounds of the wind and the water, of birds and crickets and frogs, of the last bees gathering the last pollen from the last flowers of the season. It was so quiet I could actually hear the bees. Every now and then I could hear people with little people kinds of noises, a very rarely passing car with music playing, the far-off giggle of little children waiting for a school bus. But the great, vast, deep, echoing silence was always there. Within and among, behind and around, above and beyond, all the small occasional sounds. There was the silence, from which all the sounds came, and to which all the sounds returned. And as I listened deeply to the silence of nature, it told me a story about God. The vast, deep, echoing silence of creation revealed God. It revealed the silent, majestic, formless, nameless emptiness that is fullness, the silent presence of the ground of all being, the mystery beyond all reckoning, the ultimate intimate reality that is within and among, behind and around, above and beyond all things, the no thing from which all things come into creation and to which they return. Creation was whispering to me the story of God, and it was beautiful beyond all description, really. Jesus told stories about creation because creation tells the story of God. It really, really does, even when it is silent. Amen. I think this morning, in the interest of our time frame, we will go right to the peace.